When I was a sophomore in high school and I was a little pansy, I left a letter in a girl's locker on the final day of school with my phone number on it, hoping she would call me that summer. She never called me that summer. But listen, that is less embarrassing than the day that SGA just had. He delivered a cease and desist letter to Underdog Sports telling them to not use his name, image, and likeness on a new board game they created called Unethical Hoops. And tonight delivered one of the worst playoff games we've seen by an MVP in a very long time. Going 6 of 18, 33% from the field, and being a team worst minus 28 as they got mollywopped by the San Antonio Spurs 118-91. There's so much to discuss in this basketball game, but we are headed to a Game 7 in the Western Conference Finals, and I couldn't be more excited, mostly because I just don't want to see the Thunder make the NBA Finals. So we are all out here begging to see the Spurs go face the Knicks in the NBA Finals. We had great performances on the Spurs side. Victor Wembanyama was awesome. Dylan Harper, I thought, was the key to tonight's game. The energy he brought. He played with so much aggression, getting rebounds, fighting defensively, scoring the basketball, making plays for his team. I thought Dylan Harper was great. But we're going to get into all of it. Before we do, make sure you take a second to subscribe to the channel. We're headed for 1,500 subscribers, and we're covering the NBA very closely, the playoffs. So if you love the NBA, make sure you take a second to subscribe. So early in this basketball game, Wemby hit 2 3-pointers pretty much off the rip, and in the first quarter, he hit 3 in total at 11 points, and the Spurs were up 35-22 after the first quarter. And you could tell the Spurs were playing with so much more energy than they did in Game 5, and came out, with the intention to win this basketball game and not let their season end like this. And it's so different than if you watch the Cleveland Cavaliers Game 4 against the Knicks. Yes, I understand that they were down 3-0, but still, you just see the difference in a team that believes they can win and a team that has pride and passion and fights. You saw that out of the San Antonio Spurs. They came out so aggressive and, making big plays, talking trash. And it starts with their superstar, Victor Wembanyama. I've thought in almost every game that Wemby has come out really aggressive early, the Spurs have performed really well. In the games that they haven't, it feels like Wemby doesn't take shots for too few shots in the first quarter. I think last game in Game 5, he didn't take a shot for the first 7 or 9 minutes of the game. But when he comes out really aggressive, you see great things happen for the San Antonio Spurs. As you get into the second quarter, the Thunder make a little bit of a run. It ends 60-53 at halftime. Wemby has 22 points, 6 rebounds. You're feeling really good about where the Spurs are, but it's a tight basketball game, so it's very important you come out in the third quarter and show what you're capable of. And I talk about it all the time, but it's so important those third quarters because you have time to go in the locker room and make adjustments, and great coaches are able to make adjustments, and your starters are back on the court. You see how the game is going. You see who's hot. And the Spurs came out on fire. They went on a 20-0 run against the Thunder. The Thunder missed 14 shots in a row. They didn't score for 7 minutes of real time, which is incredible. The Spurs defense was great. The Thunder weren't making shots, and the Spurs were doing great things on the offensive end of the court. And one of the things that you love about this game is obviously De'Aaron Fox has, since he's, kind of rushed back from his injury, playing in the playoffs, he's trying to get out there and fight for his team. He hasn't been quite the same on the offensive end of the court. He started this game 0 for 7 from the field, but he still provides value in being able to, handle the basketball, get the Spurs offense in their sets, giving them just an additional ball handler with Stephon Castle, with, Dylan Harper. He's providing value in that area, but if De'Aaron Fox can get it going just a little bit, this Spurs team can be so electric. But Dylan Harper for this game, I think, what did he finish with, 22? He finished with 18 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 6 of 9 from the field, and was a plus 19. His energy was unbelievable. I love the way that he plays defense, and I love some of the adjustments that Mitch Johnson has made throughout this series, because early on it felt like they were so focused on making sure that SGA didn't get going. They left Alex Caruso and Jalen Williams and Jared McCain all open for wide open shots. Well, it felt more so that they guarded him straight up tonight, and forced, him to win his one-on-one battle. And it's SGA did a terrible job of it, and I'm going to get to him here in a minute. But so the Spurs just destroy the Thunder 32-13 in the third quarter. And at that point, the game's pretty much over. It was, what is that, 26-point lead going into the fourth quarter, and the starters hardly played. And we got, Wemby finished the game with 28 points, 10 rebounds, 3 blocks. He was incredible. But again, brought a ton of energy, came into the game, a new haircut, wearing, I think it was a monk outfit. Excuse me if that's not the correct term. But you could tell he was focused, he was locked in. And Wemby feels like he's prepared for these moments. We talk about it all the time. And Devin Vassell was bringing so much energy. He was talking smack. He got a block, I believe, on Chet, and was just talking so much smack. And when the Thunder are not getting a ton of foul calls, they don't look like a great basketball team. When they're getting those touch fouls and those flop fouls and those, they didn't actually get touched, but they're flailing on the floor. When they get those foul calls, they're really hard to beat because they're really good from the free throw line. Even tonight, they were 12 of 13. They hit a high clip of their free throws. But when they're not getting those calls and the refs aren't, being fooled, they have clear flaws. And, J-Dub came back tonight, probably was not 100%, and he did not play very well. I think he didn't play very many minutes, but they were, really, he was minus 18 in 10 minutes. So he came in and, was really bad for them. And you just feel really good as a Spurs fan heading into Game 7, but it's been such a weird series that in some games, this Spurs team comes out and looks like they're way better than the Thunder, and then every once in a while, they just lay a dud, and Game 5 was really a dud, and the way that they played, it was a little inexplicable. But I feel really good about Spurs heading into Game 7. I picked the Spurs in 7, and I'm going to stick by it. And I think one of the things that I really love about tonight is the fact that they were up by so much, they were able to rest their players. They didn't have to play heavy minutes from Wembanyama. He only finished the game with 28 minutes. So going into Game 7, hopefully these guys are rested. They feel good. The playoffs are a grind, especially your first time in there. You're trying to figure out how we can serve energy. What moments do I be more aggressive versus when do I catch my breath? All those sorts of things are things you're learning as a young basketball team, especially with a young coach in Mitch Johnson. So being able to get a little bit of rest in Game 6, not having to go all out, you should feel pretty good going into Game 7, and you should only be getting healthier with guys like Dylan Harper and De'Aaron Fox. Felt like for a few games, Dylan Harper was, still dealing with that injury that he had, but he looked so excellent tonight. And what's so impressive about him is it is really, really hard to be a great young guard in the NBA. You do not see a lot of young guards making valuable playoff contributions to a team that could win the championship, or at least make the NBA Finals. It just doesn't happen very often because it's really hard to, set your teammates up for success, learning new systems. The speed of the game is so fast. You're guarding elite guards on a night-to-night basis. There's so many great guards in the NBA that it's really difficult on a young guard, and Dylan Harper has been unbelievable. I do want to talk about SGA for a minute because he has been so inefficient in this series and really so ineffective aside from, his high free throw games. And I think last game he was 16 of 17 from the free throw line. Finished the game with 30 or 32 points, if I remember correctly. But a majority of his points came from the free throw line in that game. In the game, in every other game, he has been wildly inefficient. In Game 1, he shot 30.4%. Game 2 was 50%. That's all right. Game 3, 35.3%. 40% in Game 4. 36.8% in Game 5. And 33.3% tonight. 6 of 18. That is not good enough. And what we see, there's so many conversations that have been had for SGA. You're talking about a guy who's won back-to-back MVPs, and people are having discussions. If he wins a second title, does he jump a guy like D Wade in the all-time rankings? Does he jump a guy like Isaiah Thomas, Jerry West, some of these all-time great guards? But when you watch this guy, he just does not give you the same feeling that you get when you watch Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, Even Steph Curry, a lot of guards who really, D-Wade, guards who got better in the playoffs and performed their best in big moments. SGA is the opposite of that. It feels like he has been totally ineffective this series, and it's really been pretty tough to watch, because he said he doesn't get bothered by the noise. There was an interview where he said he doesn't get bothered by the fact that the Spurs were chanting flopper, flopper, flopper. He said that kind of stuff doesn't bother him. But then his attorney, they do a cease and desist to Underdog Sports like I talked about. And it feels like he notices those things. So the way he's playing is not the way that the best player on the planet performs in the playoffs in the biggest moments. And so even if the Thunder find a way to win Game 7, I think I would be very hard-pressed to say that that's the best player in the NBA. In fact, it would be hard for me to say that I think he's better than Wemby or Jokic. And to be honest with you, if some other guys are healthy, I would maybe even pick them over SGA. I can't prove it because the back-to-back MVP. And there's a lot of times in sports that you have to either go on the eye test or the accomplishments. Both of those things really matter. When you're ranking all-time players, a guy like Tom Brady, to switch to football for a second, a lot of people thought in individual seasons Peyton Manning or Aaron Rodgers was better than Tom Brady. But at the end of his career, the accomplishments that Tom Brady had stacked up are the reason that most of us call Tom Brady the greatest quarterback we've ever seen. So yes, SGA is stacking up MVPs. He's got the one championship, and if he were to win another one this year, that would be impressive. But the way that they make you feel also matters a lot. And you think of guys like Kobe Bryant that I think only has the one MVP. The way that he made you feel when you watched him play basketball was just different. And that's why we value so much guys who are able to not only have the accomplishments, have the rings, have the MVPs, have the All-Stars, All-NBAs, but also when you watch them play basketball, you say, that's the dude. That's the best player on the planet. That guy, when his team needs him most, when the Spurs are on a 20-0 run, I know we can give that guy the basketball and he will get us a bucket. And I do not feel that way with SGA. Again, he may win the championship this year. Obviously, it's going to Game 7 and anything can happen in those. Some random guy can catch fire. You could see A.J. Mitchell could come back, or Kenrich Williams, whatever his name is, could hit a bunch of three-pointers. We saw Grant Williams do it against the Milwaukee Bucks years ago for the Boston Celtics, and in the series in a way that you just wouldn't have expected. But I still will leave this feeling so disappointed in the performance by SGA. And the performance, we talked so much about his efficiency in the regular season. He shot over 55% on, averaging over 30 points a game. But in the playoffs, he's 30% most games. He's been in the 30s in 4 out of the 6 games so far. One game he was 40 and one game he was 50. And those aren't even great either. 50's good. But all in all, you leave this series just feeling like I watched 7 games and Wemby is better than SGA, and there's really just no other way to talk. There's no other way to get around that point. I could not be more excited for Game 7 coming Saturday night. We will be locked in. We will be doing the reaction. So again, if you love the NBA, make sure you take a second to subscribe. Appreciate y'all watching. Cyborg out.